although property taxes are local, there is a portion of that that is required local effort for state, for schools. We have a massive surplus. We can cover that through our normal budget reserves. We don't need to have people paying property taxes this year on that specific line item, so we would roll that back to zero. We'd also roll back some of the local lines and issue a rebate, and so that's how you end up getting to the $1,000 per resident or homesteaded property. And look, I mean, I know we have people that have investment properties. I'd rather focus it on the homesteaded Floridians and the Florida residents, so that's where it'll be, and that's how you get to a number that's pretty significant. If you were to do this rollback with the normal range where you dedicate $250 million or whatever, $300 million, it would be very, very modest. I don't know that it would pack much of a punch, but if you're going to go up to $5 billion, you have a chance to really pack a punch. And so for middle class, $1,000 tax rebate, that's a substantial portion of their property taxes. I know some of the wealthier folks that may not be quite as much, but focusing on the middle class folks, this is going to be a really, really big deal. And again, we think it'll be likely about $1,000 per homesteaded property. Now, I think most you guys and the realtors know better than ever how this process works and the notices and all that. So this would be something that we would see percolate throughout the year and end up with end of the year trim notices. But I think it's something that would be really, really meaningful. And if it's passed into law now, people would know that this is coming down the pike very, very soon. But anything that we're rolling back, we do have the funding to be able to backfill. So don't anyone tell you, oh, they're taken from schools. No, we'll fund that. We have a big surplus. We've quadrupled the rainy day fund since I've been governor. Just over the last 6 years, we've paid off 41% of our state's debt since I've been governor. We're in good shape, and we'll be able to make it work. And we want to use that. Now, ultimately, as I said, this is just the opening salvo. We want to have a constitutional amendment on property taxes, and that's going to require a lot of effort. It's going to require us to do the DOGE through the balance of this year so that the voters see that this can actually be done and that they have an ability to both shrink their own budgets but also shift tax burdens to our tourists and our non-Floridians. And I can tell you, it's like people say, oh, people aren't going to come to Florida for this reason, this reason, this reason. It's like, they said the Canadians weren't going to come. And I'm with my kids, we were down in spring break, and we're at Legoland. And all these people coming up to me for pictures, which is fine, I normally do that. And I'd say like 80% of them were Canadians. And I'm like, I thought you guys weren't coming to Florida anymore. Oh no, we love Florida. No, so we're going to continue to be a destination, and we are excited about doing that. Now, we are a low tax state. We have the second lowest per capita state taxes in the entire country. Of course, we have no income tax, and even though we rely on sales tax, our sales tax is basically middle of the pack. California, they have this really stiff income tax. But they also have the highest sales tax. They have an 8% sales tax statewide. It's higher in a lot of localities. So we've done a good job on that, and the property taxes are basically local, but we rank middle of the pack on property tax rates throughout the country. I don't think that's good enough. I think we have an opportunity, particularly given that we draw a lot of people, to really, really make an impact on property taxes. Man, I'll tell you, first of all, the realtors, I mean, you would boom like never before. I mean, are you kidding me? This would be really good. But part of what's happened right now, we're not seeing the same amount of sales, partially because of interest rates, but partially because of the property taxes. Who wants to move from Tampa to Jacksonville if you're going to end up with a house that's going to have a much higher tax basis, and then you're going to have to fork over all this? So people are locked into lower interest rates, lower property tax. It still goes up with homestead, but not as much as it would. And that's really, I think, inhibited the market. I think you would see the market respond very positively to this. So that's the main event. That's what we're going to be looking to do in November of 2026. And look, when you're in a position to be able to make a difference, listen to folks. What are the concerns? What would make it easier? There's certain things that if I could snap my finger, I would do. We don't have control over everything as state government. I mean, there's a lot that goes on. We have a national economy. We have national policy. We have all this other stuff. But the one thing that we as Floridians, through the political process, can control is the tax. We can control that. We can go to the amendment, and we can do property taxes that way. You know, we can cut taxes on other taxes in Tallahassee. There's things you can do. We're in total control of that. That's not market-based. It's not because of what's going on in Washington. It's not because of what's going on in the private sector. We control that. And so if people need relief, we're in good fiscal shape. We have the ability to provide relief. We have a responsibility to get it done. So I'm excited to be able to make this proposal. I wasn't sure that something like this would be possible, but you know, if you up the ante, we're going to be there to call that. So I want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to hear from Tim first from the Realtors, and then we'll hear from Bill Hyde, one of our homeowners here in Central Florida. So come on up.
Well, thank you, Governor DeSantis, and thank you for putting forward this initiative. You know, Florida Realtors not only serves as the largest professional trade association in the state of Florida, but the largest voice for real estate in the United States. We have 240,000 members in the state of Florida. What I like to say is that's 240,000 small businesses. What that really is that's 240,000 advocates for homeowners. It's 240,000 people every single day that wake up and say, how do we make sure that we continue to preserve the American dream? And as our leaders and our members would tell you, that every single day that we're meeting with homeowners and prospective homeowners and future homeowners, they're talking to us about the concerns and the cost of homeownership. We have a long-standing process and policy at Florida Realtors to work for the reduction and elimination of taxes on real estate, because we understand that homeownership and property ownership truly is one of the key gateways to wealth building, financial independence, and certainly the American dream. In fact, our theme for 2025 is Champions for the American Dream. Because what we understand is that when you have home ownership in communities, you have connection. You have people that are going to get involved. Students perform better in schools when they have home ownership. But then you have to think about the burden that's placed on them. As our governor has shared, property taxes are one of those burdens. I can't help but think about my parents, blue-collar family that worked hard, became debt-free, have not had debt in over 35 years, but to the governor's point, every single year has a debt, if you will, to the state of Florida to pay those property taxes, and that burden continues to be placed on them year after year after year. A proposal such as this is one that not only will open up the marketplace, as our governor talked about, but it will also protect those that are living in their homes on fixed incomes. Those that are saying, you know what, I want to make sure that I can continue to be in the community that I love, the community that maybe I raised my family in, or in the community that I chose to move to from another part of the world or another part of the country. Homeownership truly is one of those cornerstones of the American dream, but making sure that it's affordable is going to continue to be important. We are truly blessed that people from around the world and certainly from around the country choose every single day to move to the state of Florida, and our members welcome them in. We're the ambassadors that meet them on the front lines every day and say, how do we make you, how do we help you get connected and secure within this community? How do we help you find the pathway to your financial well-being and your wealth building and home ownership? So, Governor, I want to thank you for the proposal. I want to thank you for doing this with Florida Realtors. Our organization knows better than anyone that property ownership is a core foundation of wealth, of opportunity, of stability, and of what families look for every single day. And we know that when families get to the end of work and retirement and all those things, their home is often their most valuable asset. And we want to make sure that Floridians have the ability to stay in their homes, to enjoy their homes, and to continue to build the financial wealth for their families. We believe that tax reform is needed across the board in the state of Florida, and certainly Florida Realtors is always standing on the front line to advocate for reductions when it comes to property taxes. So we thank you. We stand with you and the leaders in the state to continue to have this conversation and figure out how we can make sure that Floridians are protected, home ownership is empowered, and that more people see the dream of home ownership come to life for them. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Governor. Thanks to everybody here for giving me a few minutes to express my thanks for this proposal. My name is Bill Hyde. My wife Hope and I have been married for 46 years. She's also my former pit crew, by the way. I grew up in Hialeah. I served in the Navy, also in the Merchant Marine. We settled in Oviedo many years ago, where Hope's family has been since the 1950s. And we are here to support Governor DeSantis' proposal to eliminate property taxes. We've owned our home in Oviedo, mortgage-free, for the last 25 years and paid our taxes on time every year. We have no mortgage or escrow, so we write the check every year, and we write it on November the 1st to get that little discount. Hey, that's the truth. Okay, on first hearing about Governor DeSantis' proposal, I got pretty excited because it hadn't been that long ago that I wrote that check. I wouldn't call myself a tax watchdog, but I do try to know where my tax dollars go. And I'm pretty sure that my Seminole County commissioners and my state legislators know, and they will vouch for that I'm pretty noisy sometimes. In previous years, I've stood in front of those meetings setting the millage for property taxes, often alone, asking to hold at least to the rollback rate to give us a little chance to catch up on our taxes. Honestly, I gave up on that a couple of years ago. It was frustrating. Doctor said I need to lower my blood pressure. We're retired. We live on a very fixed income, and property taxes take a big bite out of our budget, like a lot of seniors here. Yes, there are other big ticket items at homeowners, but we have some slack with those. We have to pay our taxes every year to keep from being one of our tax collectors' tax auction items and potential losing our home. Governor DeSantis' analogy that we are just renting our home from the government is true. I know because I write the check, right? The argument that local governments sometimes hold the millage just doesn't work for everybody. As property values increase, sometimes in double digits, revenues to the government goes faster than the rate of inflation. So the result is our taxes increase faster than our income. If you're on a fixed income, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The rise in property values is pretty much meaning to us, to be honest with you, because we are most likely to live out our lives in our home where we are now, and we hope to do that. I read that there's another proposal for tax relief or lowering sales tax instead. That's all well and good and would be appreciated, but it isn't as helpful to Florida's homeowners. I've done some rough math, and we already have exemptions for basic necessities like our groceries, like the governor talked about, and our prescription drugs. Old folks know about that. And substituting a sales tax increase would help homeowners a little, but it would, removing the property tax would help us a lot. That's a big difference. The governor's plan would help Floridians more than Canadians. That's just a cold fact. I like that better. If I don't want to pay sales tax on a new car, it's not a problem. But if I choose not to pay my property tax, that's a big problem. Okay, there are adjustments that would have to be made to state and local government's budgeting process. I don't know all about that, and I am not advocating defunding local state government. I understand that, but I do encourage my local and state legislators to work with our governor and find a way to relieve homeowners of our tax burden, just so that people like Hope, me, and many other seniors are no longer just renting our homes from the government. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thanks, Bill. I appreciate that very much. And look, people have asked for relief. They need relief. There's positives when you have a state that people want to move to. The values going up can be positive. You know, part of the thing, though, I think that I've noticed, it's like this condos. The legislature passes all these condo restrictions after the Surfside Tower collapse. And I was down at Surfside for like 2 weeks straight after. I mean, it was a tragic event. If there was something that could have been done legislatively to have prevented that, obviously people would want that. I think, but what's happened with this is it's imposed all these really onerous costs on condo owners. So then you have some of these folks, and they're on fixed income too, and they're not able to afford these like massive assessments. I mean, how many people, if you're a senior and fixed income, you just pay a $90,000 assessment if that comes down the pike from like a condo association? And some people say, well, that's true, but like they can just sell their place. I mean, it's worth a lot more today than it was, when they bought it 20 years ago. And that may be true, but then where do they go, right? I mean, because like, yeah, they're making money off that, but then everything else costs a lot. So it's not that simple. And obviously the tax is an important component. We do need to make sure that people can stay in their condos. I mean, I don't think that government imposing, some of these prescriptions, if it was all targeted to preventing a Surfside, that's one thing. But if it's bleeding into other things where people are having costs imposed upon them, I'm all for transparency. I'm all for making sure these associations are on the up and up. But to say you must pony up this money because government's telling you to, people just can't afford that. So we need to provide relief there as well. But it goes hat in hand with, as these issues percolate, we want to make sure that we're responding. And at the end of the day, it's about Florida first. We've got to put Floridians first. I don't want to keep taxing Floridians on these properties to be able to subsidize a tax cut for Canadians. I'd rather the Canadians pay taxes to subsidize the reduction in Florida property taxes. It just makes sense to me. All right, we got any questions? Yes. I'm for it. I don't know that that's something that they've been too wild about, but it's something that I think has made a difference for people when they get that rebate at the end of every month. That people spend $100, $200 a year in tolls, sometimes more than that. And actually, some of these tolls, some people are spending a lot. So to be able to get half of that, if you're spending $300 a year in tolls, to get $150 back, I think that's been meaningful. I think it's been helpful, and especially in some of our areas where there's a lot of tolls. And so I think it's been an effective program, and I'd support continuing it.
Governor, if the legislature passes the sales tax cut, the property tax will be so.
Well, we're going to support lower taxes, and so I veto higher taxes when they come down the pike, and I support lower taxes. I'm fine with doing sales tax reductions. Heck, I've proposed sales tax reductions and enacted many sales tax reductions since I've been governor, and I'm happy to do that. But I also think that how are you cutting taxes? Are you going to focus on what gets you the most bang for the buck to help Florida residents? That is where I think the focus needs to be. So you got to do property relief. If you want to do sales on top of that, I'm all for that, for sure. But this property stuff needs to be addressed.
Governor, what other problem with homeownership is homeowner insurance? Any headway in solving that?
So the legislature's done a series of reforms, and so in 2024, Florida saw 11 new companies enter the market. In California, they're all leaving the market, and other states too, not just California. We had the lowest premium increases of all 50 states. The insurance is going up everywhere. I mean, people act like, we had 6 major hurricanes in 7 years, and we had record inflation nationally over much of that period. That's just a fact. I mean, and that's very difficult. So right now, you're continuing to see very modest premium or increase requests of like between 0.2 and 0.8% is kind of the norm that's happened over the last 60 to 80 days. Most people that follow this, the market, say Florida has reached a point where it's kind of plateaued and there's stability. But ultimately, you need to make sure the market is inviting to people to be able to put private capital at risk. And then if you have more companies that come in, eventually people are going to be able to do that. I can tell you what has not worked is what they did in California. They basically, government dictated, you can only do these rates or that rates. Companies left. And so now they don't have any. Now the fire has been a total catastrophe. They are also able to announce this year Citizens Property Insurance announced rate reductions in Miami-Dade County for 73% of Miami-Dade homeowners, which has not been a very easy place to insure for many, many years, and partially because of all the litigation that takes place down there. They also did 50% of the homeowners in Broward were given reductions for that. Now, there's proposals in the legislature. Some, I think, are trying to follow the California model, obviously oppose this. But there are things that are being done, people like Blaise Ngolia. You also have Senator Leak that's proposed. If you have hurricane situations, we want quick adjudication of claims, and so we have these administrative judges that can go down and maybe do these a lot quicker. So I think some of this stuff will be good. Auto insurance. Geico announced a 10% reduction in auto rates in Florida. We've never had a reduction in Florida has always had difficult situation. We have difficult driving for a variety of reasons. But auto insurance, if you look at like the 2024 end-of-year inflation print, auto insurance nationwide was the #1 inflationary item of all the major things that people do anywhere in the country. So that is going up everywhere. The reason why Geico announced 10%, Progressive announced 8% decrease, State Farm announced 6% decrease, is because a year and a half ago we did litigation reform. Florida had been a lawsuit maven. You see the billboards everywhere. You don't see that in a lot of other states, but they're everywhere. And it's all about ginning up litigation. And, you know, you'll have a client that gets $25,000 and then the lawyer gets $75,000. How is that sensible? But guess who pays the costs of those legal fees? You do. It's part of the cost of doing business, so everything raises. So we had, I think, a really bad litigation climate. I think it's gotten a lot better. But the only reason you have the reduction in auto rates that were announced, the only reason is because of the litigation reform. So if you undo that, which they're now trying to do in the Florida House, that will benefit personal injury liberal trial lawyers. That will give them more money for sure. Is that going to benefit you and your rates? No. Of course your rates are going to go up with what they're trying to do. I think they're even admitting that the rates would go up. So why would you do, when you finally have seen some relief, all tied to the litigation reform, why would you try to unwind that just to benefit one interest group? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So we don't control the rates of auto insurance. I mean, it's a private market. Obviously, there's a lot of behavior in Florida. I do think that if we enforce immigration law, I think that's going to help, because the illegals don't carry insurance. The illegals, they don't drive, honestly, they don't drive very well. And so you get into an accident and then you're just left holding the bag. So we're working on doing that. You know, we have in Florida, there's almost 1 million illegal aliens nationwide that have active deportation orders. So, like, you know, you hear this stuff in the media, oh, where's due process, where's this? They're sending people to El Salvador. These are people, these almost 1 million, they have gone through all this process, which honestly, like, if you come across the border illegally and you get caught, I don't know what process there is. You just go back. But nevertheless, there's people that are spun up about that. These people have already gone through all this process. They've been ordered removed by an immigration judge. These are not Article III judges, but fine. So you have that. We think there's probably 50,000 of those folks just in the state of Florida. Well, just imagine, you know, if you go, identify, you are going to see an impact. When we signed the immigration legislation, you know, I had people coming up to me 2 weeks later saying they noticed a difference in traffic, because I think there is a fear that if you're here illegally, you don't have a license, and you get an offender bender, it's not just going to be you skate anymore. Like, you actually, you know, will get sent back and you'll get deported to your home country. So I think the immigration stuff is going to have a positive impact on some of the costs that we see in the state of Florida, if we're able to work constructively with the federal government to swiftly remove. But yes, I mean, man, you know, the whole thing with auto rates finally getting some relief, I don't think other states are seeing that. I think that was purely because Florida did the litigation reform. So we want a stable market. We want to make sure that the goal of it is not to, you know, line pockets of interest group, but actually just provide a transparent process. And so that's what I'm going to be fighting to do. Okay, thanks everybody. God bless.